So Thomas, thank you again. This is an enlightening discussion we're having. One of the things that I'm reminded as we prepped for this, and you answered the question about the title of the book, is that I'm a professor at Arizona State where I direct public history, and my colleague Jan Warren Findley preceded me, and Noel Stowe preceded her, and he was one of the founders of the field. And I know Jan in particular was involved in the very early part of the 21st century in the internationalization of public history. So it's nice to bring her back to this. But one of the things that we've seen in the last 15 years is the full-fledged development of an international public history, including the International Federation for Public History, which you've been president of. I think your term's over, thankfully for you, although I suspect you'll be hosting a meeting here in Luxembourg shortly. But one of the things I'd like to know from you is to get a sense of where the International Federation maybe started and has where it's come now in 2022 and where it might be going in the future.
Sure. But I think the first question is, or the first point is, public historical practices are older than public history. That means that public historical practices, so oral history, historic preservation, were done globally way before people came up with the term public history. So the first thing is that international public history didn't start in the 1970s or 1880s. I mean, those practices were there before. What started in the late 20th century is to think of public history as a field, as a coherent field of practice, of training. And this emerged, yes, in the United States in the 1970s. And for 10, 20 years, most of what we could call internationalization was done in Anglo-Saxon countries. So in the UK, in Australia, in Canada, so, English-speaking countries. I think what we have witnessed in the last 20 years is a complexification of public history, a richer understanding of public history. And now you have public history, people doing public history, accepting the field or developing the field in very different countries. You have national associations of public history in Italy, in Japan, in Spain, soon in the UK. Brazil is perhaps one of the biggest network of public history professionals. So you have public history in many parts of the world. It's still sort of Western oriented, and I think we can talk about this and the concept of university and the university control over historical practices, but it's becoming more international and more, as I said, more complex, because you have different approaches of public history. Some people do public history for social justice or peace and reconciliation, as it is very important in Latin America, in Colombia, in Brazil. Others do public history more to study the public histories of the past, more like in Japan. And without being overly too general, you have different understandings of public history. But those practices, those projects, they all connect about, a question is, what's the role of historians in contemporary societies, right? How can we have a more representative history with less silences, right? How can we have a more inclusive history? I think those questions are something common to different parts of the world. And I think having an international network or federation, as International Federation for Public History was created, allows this discussion between people who may not have been connected at first, but now have a similar question and engagement about those questions. And the last point of international public history, and maybe the reason of its success, is training. Because public history, international public history, allows and asks for change in how we train students and how we move from a solid, still important, but academic history to a more public history training with different skills, different consideration about working with, working for. And I think more and more people are, and students included, looking for this project-based public history. So the training is, I think, one of the reasons why international public history is successful.
Thank you so much. We're going to turn to another dimension of that international public history challenges in the next discussion about historic preservation. So thank you again, Thomas.